So the new anime that has come out and has gained a lot of attention lately is Tower of God. Tower of God follows a character named Bam in his quest to find a girl named Rachel who's decided to climb the tower before him. I won't really go into a lot of specifics because there's a lot of mysteries yet to be solved and revealed at this point, but that's pretty much the main focal point, and there's a lot of stuff we just don't know at this point. The biggest reason I felt that this was worth making a review on was the fact that a lot of people have made some bold claims. I've seen a couple tweets and a couple people agreeing and sharing their opinion that Tower of God within its first 3 episodes is already better anime than Demon Slayer. Obviously this is a pretty subjective topic and opinion based thing, but I think it's pretty interesting that because Tower of God is this new anime, that they're already comparing it to Demon Slayer, which was the new anime like a few months ago, in which I feel like recency bias is coming into play, thinking, oh, because it's the new anime that's hot right now, people are claiming that it's better than Demon Slayer. At the time of making this video, there's only 3 episodes of Tower of God out. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be comparing the Tower of God first 3 episodes to the first 3 episodes of Demon Slayer. Another thing is, I'm not really going to be talking about the animation of each anime because they have 2 pretty different animation styles that I don't really feel it's fair to judge one over the other. It's just based on preference in that point. Obviously, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and if you prefer Tower of God over Demon Slayer or vice versa, that's completely fine. What I thought would be interesting to do is to compare Tower of God's first 3 episodes to Demon Slayer's first 3 episodes and talk about and analyze what they did differently and why one would attract more attention and favoritism than the other. Also, the Tower of God openings and endings are fire. If you haven't checked them out, I definitely recommend checking them out. The songs are really good. So without further ado, let's get started. The most obvious difference both animes have would be in terms of story progression and how it all started off. Tower of God is way faster paced than Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer starts off with training, and in the context of the story, it's obviously more necessary because Tanjiro needs to learn and grow in terms of strength. But it's definitely a reason why Demon Slayer can seem a bit more boring and lackluster in the beginning because it's setting up for a greater purpose. Tower of God, however, goes straight into a bunch of tests and goes deep into the meat and potatoes of the story, and you feel like everything's being rushed and everything's so much more fast paced. For the most part, we haven't seen much of it, so we don't really know exactly how fast it's going or how far into the story it's actually going. But for the most part, there's a lot more events taking place in the first 3 episodes than the events that happened in the first 3 episodes of Demon Slayer. The basic premise is also a little bit more interesting in terms of just the tests because it adds a more mysterious type riddle that Demon Slayer doesn't have. So that's definitely a reason why when people watch it, especially more casual anime fans, they see that as a little cool nuance and a cool little gimmick that Demon Slayer didn't have because it was setting up something even greater and it was setting up a specific story with a specific endgame. In terms of endgame, the goals and the focal points of the animes are actually pretty different. The thing about Demon Slayer is the endgame and the focal point and the goal that the characters are trying to reach is pretty obvious and set up from the start. It's obvious that once you pretty much watch the first couple episodes, you understand that the main goal is to fight the demons, defeat the demons, and find a way to turn Tanjiro's sister Nezuko back to an actual human. Now, obviously, there's things they can do with this and different paths they can take, but that's pretty much the set in stone goal, in which Tower of God's premise and focus is a lot more ambiguous. Just the way they set it up, there's so much more things left to be vague and things that they can expand on later. In Tower of God, we have this vague understanding that Bam wants to find Rachel, but there's another possible endgame where just climbing the tower is the endgame goal. Also, for as of now, we just see the tower as the world, but they could expand in world build. While Demon Slayer, the world building was part of the actual story, in which when they world build more and find more things and see more demons, that's the basic premise of the anime. There are so many other points too that we just need to be addressed, in which they also all could be endgames, like the king. There was mention of a king that we have nothing about. He could be a late endgame boss type character. There's a lot of the princesses of Jihad, if I'm pronouncing that right. That's also something. And there's a lot of things where they set up different characters' endgames and their goals, or at the very least they set up their own ideals and developments very early on, which Demon Slayer did not do at all. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Demon Slayer's obvious or more straightforward goal is better or worse. I'm just saying that it could be more enjoyable or interesting when you're watching an anime for the first time to have this end goal that's ambiguous in a mystery other than a goal that you know what's going to happen. Both could be interesting. It's just that for someone who's watching it for the first time, they might sympathize with the more ambiguous and vague goal because they are more interested in seeing what is going to happen rather than seeing how it's going to happen. Another thing is that Demon Slayer sets up a very clear enemy, and it's a lot crueler than Tower of God. There's an obvious enemy with the demons, and understanding that those are the enemy, and that's the thing we're supposed to fear. While Tower of God, anybody and anything could be the enemy. There are characters that seem like they're enemies, but they're actually good. There are characters that seem like they're good, but actually can be bad. And you really just don't know. Again, I'm not really saying one is better. I'm just saying that many people could probably find Tower of God better because they like mysterious things and they like plot twists a little bit better than Demon Slayer. It's way more straightforward. Also, Demon Slayer started off very, very crazy. They killed off the main character's family in the first episode. Like, that also might be a turnoff to other people because they don't really like when there's just sadness and cruelty the whole time. They like a little bit more happiness. So Tower of God definitely appeals to that aspect a little bit better too. The next point I want to discuss is about the main characters. Bam is kind of a weird protagonist because he seems kind of weak, but he's not really. But also, he hasn't really gotten any feats that established his strength at all. All his wins and dubs have been given to him. His first win was with the Silk Eel, and he got the win because the blade gave him power. And everything else, all the other tests, someone else did it for him. So we don't really see any feats in terms of possibilities of strength, but he's not typically scared or a nervous wreck in situations. Like when the Shinsu water didn't push him back for the second test, he offered to go back, which was kind of weird because it kind of means he has some confidence that if he went back, he would still be able to get over, right? So it's kind of weird how they made him into this more nonchalant character that is kind of like aloof, but he definitely has some confidence in him, which is kind of interesting, but it's definitely a little bit weirder. Tanjiro isn't weird at all. The first episode, we see a little bit of his greatness where he tries to throw the hatchet at Gyu, and Gyu is even surprised at what he tried to do, in which at this point us watchers are like, wow, Tanjiro, he's got something. He's got something that we definitely should be watching out for. And his motives and just the way he is, his personality, is so much more direct and stationary. In all fairness, I kind of prefer Tanjiro in that fact because I feel like we're not getting two different things or just a bunch of different things. We're getting one specific, solid, consistent thing, and I kind of like that a little bit better. The next point I want to talk about is, I feel like, the most overlooked point, but also the most important point in talking about the differences in both animes. And that is the introduction of characters and the amount of characters introduced early on. Obviously, Demon Slayer introduced way more characters later on, and a lot more characters that we definitely enjoyed and liked more. But in the first 3 episodes, Demon Slayer introduced so little. We introduced Tanjiro and Nezuko in the beginning. We see their family, but they get slaughtered, so you don't really have any time to get attached to them. The other 2 characters would be Urokodaki, the Tanjiro's sensei or master, and Gyu. And Gyu was a very sliver amount of time. Even Sabito and Makomo, they were there for just training purposes, and they don't really have any relevance later on in the story. Plus, they were characters that were dead. So it's kind of hard to get attached to them when they are not going to appear later on. So that's one thing that I would say that Tower of God does more, is they introduce way more characters that are a little bit more interesting earlier on, which I feel like that would probably attest to people liking it more. Because that was the biggest reason for me when I was watching Tower or Demon Slayer, was the fact that there wasn't really any characters, especially side characters, to improve the main characters to get attached to. Because a lot of times when animes have this specific main character, especially a direct and straightforward one like Tanjiro, he needs a lot of supporting cast members to back him up and make him a more two-dimensional character, and more different quirky characters to bounce off his personality. Tower of God actually does this, in which we get introduced to characters like Kun, Anak the lizard girl, Leroro, which was the tower, like second stage's floor master or whatever that guy is, the guy that has the diamond on his cheek. We have Rak, that lizard guy or the alligator guy. He's there for more comedic relief, but he's kind of funny. I kind of fuck with him. We have Hats, which is the sword guy that fought the lizard girl, and it definitely sets up the top tiers a lot earlier, or this kind of shadow or silhouette of top tiers. Demon Slayer also did this in talking about the Demon Slayers, but it was kind of a very vague, distant thing that you felt like was miles away, in which Tower of God is kind of similar, but there are specific characters that Tower of God does introduce, like Hedon, which is the caretaker of the tower. We have mentions of the Princesses of Jihad, which they're said to be pretty strong. We have the Floor Masters. There's talk about a king, like I said, in which that could be a final endgame boss, like a top tier boss. And there's also just statements and people talk about the people on higher floors and just those characters. So we definitely know and hear about a lot more characters than Demon Slayer did. And a big thing in anime is the characters. If you don't like the characters, it's really hard to like the anime because you just don't care. So when you establish a lot of characters early on, there's a lot more people to choose from to kind of pick favorites, which is another reason, and I think it's probably the most important reason that people like Tower of God better, because they can pick one character to stan, I guess, and then they kind of just coast the whole anime on the back of that character, in which Demon Slayer didn't do this, which is why later on in Demon Slayer, when they started introducing more characters, it started becoming a lot better and getting a lot more popularity. My last point that I would like to say is actually something that I feel like Demon Slayer does better, in which Demon Slayer establishes a power system early on, in which Tower of God, we just have this vague introduction of Shinsu, which could be the power system, but it also could not be the power system. And just a lot of the characters are either just strong because they're sword fighters, or they have a blade in which makes them strong. There's a lot of things going on. But Demon Slayer established the breathing techniques and just different sword styles very early on, which is what Tanjiro was actually training for, in which I felt like I was actually so much more interested in learning about the different breathing techniques and the power system in general than in Tower of God. I'm kind of just like, well, how are they going to win? Because a power system allows the watcher to understand how the character is going to fight. Tower of God doesn't really have a power system, so we're kind of just like, okay, how is Bam going to defeat this enemy? How is he actually going to fight? Is he going to use the blade he has? Or is he going to get something else? Is he going to outsmart them? There's a lot of different factors, and that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because in the beginning of Hunter x Hunter, they actually did the same thing until they introduced the power system. So Tower of God definitely has that potential, but I feel like establishing a power system early on is definitely gives more backbone and more possibilities later on, because you can expand on it and you can have earlier fights showcasing this power system, where in the case of Tower of God, you can't really have a lot of fights unless you're going to introduce the power system, because then it begs the question, when the actual power system is introduced, that why wasn't it used earlier, and why weren't the characters aware of the power system at that time? I'm not going to say that I feel like doing that is objectively better, but I felt like establishing a power system early on, like Demon Slayer did, is definitely better in my opinion, because I just like seeing and knowing how an anime character is going to fight and how people are going to fight, and just the only mystery in that case is how they're going to use the power system in their own ways to gain an advantage. Now, in conclusion, my opinion is that it's pretty unfair to compare Tower of God's first 3 episodes to Demon Slayer as a whole, which is why I compared both first 3 episodes. However, I definitely think that Tower of God's first 3 episodes, maybe not better, but were definitely way more interesting than Demon Slayer's first 3 episodes. But Demon Slayer as a whole anime definitely beats Tower of God's first 3 episodes. I don't think that's should be up for debate. The thing is, I will give Tower of God credit that it definitely has the potential to become as good or maybe even better than Demon Slayer, because the premise is actually pretty interesting, and with all the tests and little riddles and the cleverness to the anime, it definitely has this sparks and makings of something great. But you never know. It could go down, it could be up. I haven't read the manga, and I haven't really felt like I have a dire need to read the manga, in which I'm a Demon Slayer manga reader, in which after a specific amount of time in Demon Slayer, I felt like I need to read the manga, I need to know what happens. So maybe Tower of God can do that for me, but as of right now, it's pretty silly to compare 3 episodes to a whole anime, especially for me because I'm a manga reader, so I know the whole story in general versus 3 episodes. And I feel like Demon Slayer just beats it in that regards. But definitely the first 3 episodes of Tower of God were way more interesting than Demon Slayer, because I felt like the first few episodes of Demon Slayer were kind of boring and I wasn't really as interested. But then Demon Slayer picked up the pace and it definitely expanded upon a lot of things, which made it what it is today. And it definitely made the beginning few episodes worth it, in which Tower of God could peak at this point. You never know. But anyway, that's what I think. If you guys think something else, let me know down in the comment section. What do you guys think? Do you guys prefer Demon Slayer, or do you guys think Tower of God has the potential to be better? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, give me a sub. I kind of like doing these. I like analyzing animes. So if you guys like how I did this, or if you guys think suggestions to things I can improve upon, let me know down there. If not, it's your boy Kid Clutch here, and I'm signing off. Later.